Welcome to the Grief Ladies, the practical guide to what comes next. I'm Kelly Doherty.
And I'm Karen Arnold, and we are two grief professionals with over 50 years of combined experience. We're here to validate, educate, and give you tangible tools you can actually use.
Each episode motivates you to take action and reminds you it's okay to want to feel better. This is the Grief Ladies, a guide to what comes next.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Grief Ladies podcast. I'm Karen here with Kelly, and today we are focusing on the letter I for interacting, and we've got lots to talk about under that heading today. We have a special guest with us. Her name is Joelle Lydon. Joelle, thank you. Welcome. Glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, really glad to be here.
Yeah, so as I said, we would like to just jump in with the bio because that's the kind of the quickest way to give everybody a sense of who you are and what you do. So Joelle Lydon is a relationship coach, creativity facilitator, and the author of Unbreakable Us, Removing the Barriers to Love. For over 15 years, she's guided individuals and couples in understanding the deeper architecture of their relationships, helping them move beyond surface communication strategies into sustainable, embodied connection. Her work integrates relational systems thinking, nervous system awareness, and creative process to illuminate the patterns that quietly shape intimacy. Known for her clarity, depth, and grounded presence, Joelle brings both intellectual rigor and heartfelt wisdom to conversations about love. So thank you, Joelle, so much again, as we said, for being here. We're wondering if you could just jump right in and tell us a little bit about your work and your day-to-day and some of what you do.
So my work has expanded over the last number of years. So I started off very much in a intuitive sense, kind of putting together a course that I started teaching because I was in the process of experiencing relationship differently. And I thought because the end result was so positive, AKA I have my husband now, was that it was so positive that I felt that other people needed a roadmap because I hadn't been given one in regards to relationship. And so it started with creating a series of workshops, which has now branched into one-on-one work with individuals and now expanded into couples work. And one of the unique ways in which I work with people is that I bring in not just the coaching aspect, but my education background. So I have modules that my clients receive, and I have creative processes that they engage in, and as a way to bypass the thinking mind, so we can get to awareness and we get to work with that. So it's kind of evolved over the years.
Okay. So when you talk about that roadmap, what does that mean specifically in terms of being able to be connected or find connections with someone?
Yes, and so I would say that the people I tend to work with were given a roadmap that in this X marks the spot time period does not serve their present need. So there are storylines, there are belief systems that are locked into place, what I call their internal operating system that has them reacting, responding to particular situations from a vantage point that is not helpful to them in their current adult state. And so it's important to go through and question all of that and practice things differently so that their needs are met in their current place as an adult individual. And so that's really kind of like the essence of it.
Okay. It makes sense. And so in terms of someone who maybe has sustained a significant loss, perhaps, how would that apply? What do you think that would mean for them?
So I use a 7-step process to really serve and support them. And when someone, and the process has is built on a framework that is cyclical. So if you look at life in general, we kind of go through these cycles. We can go through these cycles within a minute, in a day, in a year, in a month, in years. And the cycle looks like everyday experience, then moving into some form of rupture. In your field, that would be loss of some sort. Now, the loss could be It could be health loss. It could be a divorce. It could be a, a health crisis. It could be a devastating circumstance. It could be I lost my keys, right? But it creates some kind of um, jarring to the nervous system. From there, you move into what I like to call transparency, where you lean on somebody, a trusted friend, mentor, coach, to share and receive guidance and wisdom from. So that goes into the receiving piece and then back into action. And the action is now informed by that everyday rupture, transparency, uh, receiving, right? So it's like allows you to kind of move up the developmental cycle. So when somebody's dealing with loss, that's typically the cycle that I work with them with, and to recognize that there is a beginning, there is a middle, and there is an end. And then there's a beginning and a middle and an end. So the roadmap normalizes somebody's experience so that they don't feel like they're going to drown in the emotional experience of the rupture or be completely eaten up or swallowed up by the experience.
Okay. Well, and I think, oh, go ahead, Kelly.
Well, one of the things, Karen and I hear a lot of different themes, I think, in the work that we do with our grieving clients. And one of them, I think there's a couple of things, right? Both of us work with a lot of widows. So it's about like, who am I now? This identity piece and like, okay, maybe when they're ready to date, what that looks like. But then we also see, which I know you could probably give some great advice about, but also we work with a lot of I think it happens a lot with the women I work with, where maybe they have the death of a parent or a death of a friend, and their husband is great initially, right? Their partner is great initially, and then that support kind of goes away, and they feel very lost, and they feel very disconnected from their partner, and so I see that a lot of as that rupture that happens a lot in relationships, and I think Karen would agree that she sees that as well. So what advice or suggestions would you maybe give to somebody that's listening that maybe is experiencing that change in their relationship?
Looking for a grief community that actually feels supportive, not overwhelming? We built one. The Grief Ladies community on Facebook is a private, free space where you can connect with others who are navigating life after someone they love has died. Inside, you'll find weekly prompts, practical tools, conversations that feel real, not sugar-coated, and a place where your person is honored. If you want steady support and a community that understands what your days look like right now, come join us. Search the Grief Ladies community on Facebook or tap the link in our bio.
Well, I think first and foremost is to recognize that this is a point in time, right? And that both people, even though the one may be feeling the experience more intensely, both people are in the experience. So I think that's really important, just even as an orientation, that it's not just the one experiencing the experience. Because I imagine the partner is feeling unclear about what it is that they can do to serve and support the one who's perhaps feeling the experience with more intensity. And so what I would say to someone in that case is that intimacy isn't gone in that situation. It's just momentarily, it's kind of foggy. It's like a mist that happens in your yard, right? It's like all of a sudden I can't see the end of my property, but the end of the property is still there. And what I would say is that it helps to really be clear on what it is that one needs in any particular moment and to make requests to receive it. With partners, it's really helpful to know specifically how they can be of service and support to their partners. Instead of trying to like shoot darts in the dark, right? Like, I think I'm going to try this. Okay, that didn't work. That I'm going to try that. No, that didn't work. Right. But if somebody is able to, in a particular moment, with clarity, share what their desire is, what would really serve and support in that moment. I could really use a hug. I just need to bawl my eyes out. Will you hold me right now? Um, I need just some quiet time to go take a walk in the woods with the dog. Do you mind doing the dishes while I go do that? That would really serve and support me. So those small requests are really helpful to serve and support the connection, because it might feel in the moment that there's a rupture, that there's a schism between one partner and the other. And the easiest way to reconnect is to be clear on what one needs and to make the request for it, and to then allow the other to then present and support with that.
Yeah. So I'm going to be a little vulnerable now, and I will share that I attended one of Joelle's workshops 12 years ago. And uh, the best part about it all was I learned so much from her, but I also met my husband because there was a men's panel and Kevin was on that panel. But there's so many of the things, Joelle, that still today I use from that workshop that I did with you. And one of them is, I remember it called dumping the charge, and being able to just vent and dump and get all my feelings out, and not have somebody have to be like, fix it in that moment. And so I've learned, even with now my husband, like, before I talk to him about something, I'll usually tell him what I need. Okay, I need right now for you to just listen, or I need your advice on this, because I think at least a lot of the men that I know, they want to fix things, right? They hear something, they want to give me all this, give advice. And sometimes I just need to dump the charge and hear and have be listened to, and not necessarily validated or questioned or told what to do, but just listened to. And so I still use that and I love that. And so thank you for that because I do share that a lot with clients, because I think sometimes we don't always know, we don't always tell our partner what we need out of a conversation. And then we have these expectations and we get let down
Yeah.
or
Or we
frustrated.
get resentful, right? Or frustrated and
Hmm.
resentful, right? Because we start the conversation of, let's say, dumping the charge, right? Like, you want to just dump the charge, and then your partner's like, okay, well, you could do this or you could do that, and they're trying to come at you with a solution, and you're like, no, all I want to do is dump. Can you just listen, right? So so that's what I mean by being clear on what your desire is, what your intention is, and then beginning the conversation with that intention. So both you and your partner know exactly what's expected, and those moments of frustration and clashing and resentment become mitigated. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the connection
Yeah.
is kept, right? And they get to serve you, right? So they're still honoring and serving and supporting you, and you get your needs met.
Yeah. Well, I love the idea of, both people being in the experience. Cause, if there's a disagreement or something, I used to even tell my two kids this, if they were both arguing and everybody was trying to decide who's at fault, I'm like, you're both at fault. If we're both involved, then we're both, complicit in some way. So I think the idea that we're both in this relationship, we're both experiencing it, even if it looks very, very different, is important. When I talk to people about this particular instance, which again would be maybe someone who's lost a parent, let's say, and they're feeling challenged with their partner, part of it I feel like is trying to understand why, because I think they're kind of sad and disappointed. Like, maybe it feels bad enough that work isn't understanding or that their friends aren't understanding, but like, why isn't, this is supposed to be my person. And so some of how I've understood it to try to explain is that, one, I think they are the ones also being the most impacted. As you said, they are in the experience. So if this person is grieving and, not as motivated, not as productive, not as enthusiastic, the partner is going to feel the primary brunt of that. But I also think the partner, probably as the closest in proximity, feels the responsibility to keep them from falling into a hole. And so they feel like maybe they have to push or they have to coach or they have to, motivate them to get moving, when really, as Kelly was saying, sometimes it's just, I just want you to listen. I just want you to be patient. I just need more time. So how do we help kind of bridge that gap when it comes to this?
One of the things that this is not work that I was doing when I was working with you, Kelly, but one of the things that came through in my book, was this idea that when you're in partnership with another person, it's not just you and just not them, but there's this third entity, which I refer to as a sacred third, that you're either contributing to or taking away from. And so if I'm understanding you correctly, Karen, like the question is from the vantage point of the partner, not the experiencer. I just want to be clear before I continue to answer this question.
Well, I think it could I mean, more often than not, I'm talking to the grieving person
Yeah.
who is feeling rushed maybe by their
Hmm.
partner.
Yeah.
And so I think a big part of what helps us through it, in at the very least, is understanding the intention, or maybe sometimes a lack of a negative intention. That, listen, they're probably worried about you. They probably, so I guess it could really probably be from either perspective, frankly.
Hmm. So I think, again, this comes back to communication and recognizing that both people are in the experience and that the partner wants for the griever, we'll call him or her, to have the smoothest, most comfortable grieving experience possible and to sort of comfort and do what they can to create that for them. But sometimes I think it's really important to recognize, and this would be, again, understanding the roadmap of grief, that's actually can sometimes short circuit and shortcut the process for the griever. And so it's really important that time is allowed for each person to go at their own individual pace when it comes to grieving. And so part of that is educating the support person who's experiencing by proxy the grief, and to provide education, technologies, skills that would allow them to both be present and connected while allowing the space needed for the person to move through that grief cycle all the way through, not just kind of like peak and then scooch back, and then not even peak, but then scooch back, right? And which keeps them kind of in this unending loop of grieving, but really go through the entire story arc of the grief itself. Because I think sometimes inadvertently and trying to make things well, because it's not just for them, it's for the individual who's experiencing the discomfort that the other person is experiencing. So there's a little bit of managing and trying to get the situation so they don't have to feel the discomfort themselves. But it's beginning to give them the kinds of tools that they need to be able to let the griever go through the whole cycle. So I would say education, technologies, tools, and then just an understanding again that this too shall pass. It'll just have its own timing and its own
Mm.
pacing.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And one of the things I do, one of the parts of my work is to work with couples and trying to help the spouse or the partner of the grieving person understand the grieving process a little bit better, because even the person who's going through it doesn't even fully understand it. And that can be
Mhm.
one of the more challenging things, is that the partner's like, listen, just tell me what to do. Do you want a hug or do you want to be left alone? And the grieving person's like, I want both of those things.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
not being able to always express what you want or need is going to be part of the challenge too. um
Yeah.
I think also, a different relationship, maybe a different type of intimacy, but I had a woman who lost a spouse talk about this in a group the other day, that it was her adult child who was kind of pushing and kind of saying, like, basically, like, mom, you're wallowing in it. Like, you need to get out. You need to just come on. It's been this much time, whatever it may be. I'm sad too, but look at me. I'm off doing this, this, and this. So, and I always say communication, help them understand. But I have every once in a while gotten some pushback from grieving people that are just basically saying, but I shouldn't have to do that. I'm so tired, and I'm tired of talking, and I'm tired of engaging, and I'm tired of having to be the one to explain, my grief to people. So if someone is feeling resistant, maybe because their energy is depleted, do we have options beyond? Because to me, again, communication, that's the number one, that's the ideal, that's the hope that we can start with that. But what if that's not as easy or as possible in a moment?
So I think of moments when, let's say, I've taken a dip myself. Oftentimes, music will do something to kind of move something with me, but I cannot play, uh, you know, don't worry, be happy, wait, I can't go there. Like the note, the energy, the quality of what's happening internally for me is not, don't worry, be happy. So that is not the song I can start with, right? I might have to start with like a really grindy, soulful, deep kind of energetic quality to meet me where I'm at, which will then bring me to the next. So then I can express and experience that to then bring it to the next place, then to the next place, to the next place. So in a situation where someone's like, snap out of it, kind of like, moonstruck, snap out of it, right? It's like, that's not possible because you're presenting a don't worry, be happy tune to someone who's in a place that is just not ready, open, willing, receptive to hear that tune. So I'm speaking of music metaphors, and I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes perfect
I'll
sense.
just,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, I think the thing that we had talked about was maybe sometimes, we want to try to communicate, we want to try to connect, we don't want to feel as isolated and alone. We want to feel understood. Every once in a while, that's going to be tough, especially I think within families, because everybody's hurting for different reasons. Everybody has different coping skills, different history, everything else. So sometimes I think maybe it does have to come down to also taking some space, taking some time, and maybe finding another opportunity or trying to have faith in another opportunity to connect down the road. But maybe this just isn't that moment where we understand each other perfectly. And maybe
Mhm.
that can be okay too.
And that's the communication.
Yeah.
That right there is the communication. I am not ready today. This doesn't mean that you shouldn't come back to me in a week's time and say, let's go out for a walk with the dog, because I might feel differently then. But for today, I just need this time. And so that is a communication that is very true, genuine, sincere, and vulnerable. But that's the communication.
Mm. Yeah. Makes sense.
Well, and Karen always says, right now, right? Adding those words in right now. And I think that's based, similar. Right now, this is where I'm at. Doesn't mean I'm going to be there forever, but, understanding that.
It might
Well,
feel
so
like a forever, it might feel for them like it's forever. But again, that's the education piece of recognizing they understand what the story arc is like. They can see, like, or at least conceptualize and understand that this is not the place that they will always be in. Then they can see that the yet is possible, that the not yet is possible.
and as we always say, there's no timetable with grief. So we don't know what that will look like and when that will shift and change for people. Everybody is so unique and different with that. So I would like to kind of ask some thoughts because I know also this is one of Karen's favorite topics is dating after loss. And sometimes that dating could be after the loss of a parent or a sibling or the death of a spouse. And for somebody, there is no timetable. Everybody kind of knows when they feel ready to do that. It might be different for everybody. And some people may be listening, be like, I'm never going to do that. And that's okay as well. But what are some tips or things that somebody that maybe, especially a widow that maybe has been with somebody for 30 years and dating nowadays is very different than back then. Um, what are some things that you think somebody should be aware of, or how do they communicate their needs early on? I remember you kind of talking about some things to ask for in a first date to really kind of know where somebody's at and what they're looking for and how important that is.
Yeah, and I definitely speak about that in the book as well, which is like being really clear with your dating intention, right? And being very transparent, which is typically in the dating situation, it's like a military operation where you strategically hold your cards close to yourself and you will only reveal certain ones because you want to make sure that you're um, accepted, approved of, right? And my stance on this is like show all the cards. If you're looking to be remarried in a year, you say that. If you're looking to stay in your home because that's where you feel most comfortable and you have no desire to move in with someone down the road, you say that, right? If you are a slow cooker and you want to be dating for 4 years before you even consider a next step, you say that. So there's a level of clarity and communication and transparency that can happen in the dating process. And what that does is that it eliminates the riffraff from the real deal. It eliminates the people who are just not going to be a match for that, who are actually looking to move in with someone straight away or to like be married next year, right? Then that kind of lets them off the hook and they're free to explore all of that. And then you get to continue to go through the sorting process because that's what dating is. It's not a finding problem, it's a sorting process. And in your clarity, you get to sort until the person who says like, yep, I can do that. Yep, I can do that. Yep, I can do that. You got a deal. Let's do it. And so I would say that again, what is it that you want? And again, take your time because this person you may have lost, let's say if it were a beloved partner, could be the love of your life. And the idea of replacing the love of your life with somebody else just feels daunting enough. Take your time.
Definitely. And I always say, like, you know, when a widow is dating, it's very different than somebody who's been divorced that's dating. Because at the end of the day, this person probably wouldn't be dating. It's not an ex, right? It was their love of their life or their partner or and it's very different, I think, because they don't hate them, right? They still very much
Right.
love them. And Karen talks about, I love it in one of she does a workshop on this. And it's you're in love with two, you can be in love with two people. And how do you navigate that?
Yeah. And that actually creates even more clarity because you know what you appreciate, what you love, what you respect. And then you can, with more clarity, ask for those very qualities in somebody else, right? It makes the sorting part a little bit easier because when somebody doesn't smell like that, and and that way, then you can just basically say like next, right? Because you're looking for a specific kind of an individual who has the qualities, the values, the energy, um, the tone of what you experienced. And so not that you're trying to create a duplicate of that because that's not going to be possible, but at the very least has the traits and the qualities and the values of the person that you're looking for.
And probably what you're looking for now, understanding that what you would have been looking for before would be different, because at a
Absolutely.
different point, whether you have lost the person that you're married to and had children with, or maybe a lot like, we mentioned people who lost a parent. It's possible they devoted their entire life to caregiving and have never been able to really take this time to go out on their own. But, maybe had some dates in college, high school, that kind of thing, but they're also in a different point in their life. So it's realizing that you may find yourself being drawn to different people because you have been changed or you've grown or there's things that matter to you now or your perspectives are a little bit different. So the odds of that carbon copy are very low for a lot of different reasons, I think,
Yes.
too. And we don't want to set out looking, to be replacing. I mean, I kind of talk about the idea of companionship. I think just, in a role that a person played, like a partner can play a role as someone to have dinner with, someone to, go to a movie with. There's other people who can step into that role. And it doesn't mean, that we're trying to, necessarily. The other thing too is people talk about like, oh, I don't know if I want to get married again. It's like this, we're not talking about marriage. This could just be spending time with somebody.
Right. And it could be actually multiple people.
Right.
Right? It could be the person that you go to restaurants with, and the person that you do the movies with, and the person that, right? And so the companionship can come in many forms while you're sorting and deciding, because who you were at 20 when you may have gotten married is not who you are at 60. Right? And
Right.
so those things are going to be different, but it doesn't mean that I think part of this is also thinking that we have to put all of our eggs in one basket.
Agreed.
In the dating sorting process, my recommendation is have several baskets, especially when one particular individual in all of the dating process kind of bubbles up to the surface as a more interesting candidate. Let's say you do not want to be putting all of your eggs in their basket, putting all the pressure on them or in the relationship to have the outcome be a particular thing, but to have all these other places where you are getting companionship so you can really sort of ease your way into assessing, determining, discerning if this person might be a more interesting candidate than the others. And then when the answer is clearly decided as to that being perhaps a yes, then those other baskets can maybe fall away or not. Right? You may still keep those other people in your life as companions in different ways. So that's something that is a little bit unique in looking at the sorting process, the dating process, is to have several baskets. As women in general, we have big appetites, and we want to satisfy those. The last thing you want is a starving woman dating.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And I think what you're kind of talking about is the idea of things always being so outcome based. We do approach a lot of life with, a specific outcome in mind. And that kind of tunnel vision tends to take away other options, meaning, I'm here to date and I met this guy and I have no attraction to him. So I guess that's it. And meanwhile, it could be a really wonderful friend,
Right.
and somebody whose company you enjoy thoroughly and could have a really nice connection with. So it kind of, I guess, speaks to just the importance of openness in general with a lot of things and how that can help us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the things um, that supported me and, well, sort of helped me kind of change my focal point in my coaching practice from I was supporting people with their careers, and I moved into relationships because my dating experience was very limited and I was very unskilled. And one of the things that I did to sort of change my mind about dating and men in general, because I didn't feel very highly about them, was to do a year-long project where I dated many, 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 many men, just to change my mind about them. And I won't go into all the details about that, but in the end, what happened for me was that I realized that every individual that I dated, whether they were a good match for me or not, possessed within them an aspect of the one, something that I was looking for. So that speaks directly to what you're sharing, Karen, is like
Hmm.
that everyone that you can be in contact with, find companionship with, may not have all of the qualities, but will possess enough of what you're looking for that will really serve and support in your healing process and in your sorting process.
Are you ready to take the next step on your grief journey with real tools and compassionate guidance? The Grief Ladies are launching a brand new workshop series based on their signature grief, GRIEF framework. 5 trail markers to help you find your footing after your loss: grounding, rebuilding, interacting, evolving, and finding. Each workshop focuses on one trail marker, guiding you through practical steps to move from surviving to living again, all in a space that's honest, supportive, and real. Led by grief experts Kelly Doherty and Karen Arnold, these workshops combine decades of experience with tools you can start using today. Visit griefladies.com to explore the upcoming workshops because you don't have to climb this mountain alone.
Well, I'm going to switch gears now because we always like to talk about our segment, Celebrate Their Life. And before we logged on today, Joelle shared that she has just gone through a loss that sounds like was pretty significant. And so, what Celebrate Their Life is all about, Joelle, is really about so many of us get stuck on the end. We get stuck on the death that we forget to remember our loved one's life and to remember the good, and also to know that that connection can still exist, that we can still remain connected to them, to the memories, to even to those feelings. So I'm curious, knowing that you're in some early grief right now, and this may be a little premature, but how can you still honor and celebrate your friend's life?
I love that you asked that because this is my husband's best friend. And his wife is somebody I'm very close with. And so this friend of ours, Mark, English, had this zest for life that my husband and I have been talking about, like, what would Marky do? What would Mark do? How can we take bites out of life the way that he did? So there are these ways in which we're celebrating him just in this conversation that my husband and I are having of, and actually this thing makes me think of a question because we have a number of questions that we ask each other at night when we're over dinner just to kind of check in on our day. But I love the idea, and this just dropped in sort of intuitively. It's like, did you have a marquee moment? Right? What was your marquee moment today? And that would kind of keep his memory and his approach to life alive for us. And that would be just a way that he and I can celebrate on the daily because we sit down for dinner at the table every day, people. I know it's kind of like a unique concept. But how that would be a way of daily celebrating him and to really recognize his impact in our life and the love that we have for him, even at this time where he's no longer physically present with us.
That's a great, I mean, it's all what we talk about a lot is that through this work, trying to help people move forward in some way, so that they can be present and participating with their life, but never, wanting to leave anybody behind and maintaining connections in any way that we can. And it's just always unique. I think that's why Kelly likes asking these stories, and we encourage everybody to be thinking about what that would mean for them. So, as we are thinking about what can help, what is a takeaway, something that you could suggest to somebody who's listening today, something that they can start right away in regards to connections or in regards to communication, anything that we talked about today that you think somebody could try that would help?
What I would say is taking introspective inquiry time about what do I need, what do I want, and what do I desire? What do I need? What do I require? Just even answering those questions, like right now in this moment of grieving, what do I need, desire, require? To write it down. Because we could say it in our head, but then 10 minutes, we get foggy and grief, right? And so write it down. So have it someplace. So when somebody asks, what do you need right now? You've got the list. And you can say, you know what? My yard is a hot mess. I could really use somebody's help picking it up. Would you be willing to come over? We'll have a cup of tea and then we'll go pick up all the bits and pieces and clean it up and ready it for spring and summer. So I would say just that level of clarity. So when people ask, because ask they will, you have clarity of what it is that you desire, require, need, and they can provide it for you. So you're fully 100% seen, heard, held, understood in this process.
What a good idea. And it's so helpful to the people who are asking because I think they are genuine and they are feeling helpless and they would like to have that satisfaction of being able to feel less helpless perhaps, and to be able to do something kind of hands-on or whatever it may look like. So I think that that's a wonderful idea. And, maybe kind of keeping it at a list on the ready is great. So, Joelle, there's been so much good stuff here today, and we've really appreciated your time with us. If someone wanted to learn more or get in touch with you, how could they go about doing that?
So my website, joellelydon.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, Instagram, all the social medias. Yeah, that's probably the easiest way. They can also email me at joelle@joellelydon.com if they're looking to connect more personally. So yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. I know I have been writing notes, and there's stuff that I'll be able to use with people I work with going forward. So I'm sure this has been so helpful to people. So thank you so much for being here today. Thank you, Kelly, and thanks to everybody. We hope to see you again.
Thanks for joining us on the Grief Ladies.
Don't wait to feel better to get started. Getting started is what makes you feel better. Put this week's tool to work.
If today's episode helped, share it with someone who needs it and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you.
And remember, we're here for you, your trusted grief ladies, navigating this path together.